Lumi stared on in horror at the devastation ahead of her. Tears began rolling down her face as she fell on the soft ground beneath. Lumi sat on the floor crying to herself, muttering, "Ajax, come back, don't leave me." The sounds of running and screaming echoed around her as Ajax Nox stared at her, watching her weep. Ajax Nox turned around, staring at Uriel, who was fast approaching. He looked worried, contrasting against the impassive expression on Ajax Nox. The sounds of Uriel running became louder, and without even giving him a glance, he ran past Ajax Nox. When Uriel approached Lumi, he immediately knew what had happened. He helped Lumi stand up before he spoke to her in a calm tone. "Lumi, it's going to be all right. I'm sure Ajax is safe. Let's get out of here." Lumi looked up at Uriel, wiping the tears from her face, before slowly nodding. Uriel and Lumi walked toward Ajax Nox. The ground beneath them began to shake, and as they arrived at Ajax Nox, Lumi spoke up with a shallow voice. "There is a place. My father never gave it a name, but it's safe there." Ajax Nox and Uriel stared intensely at Lumi as she spoke, both of them nodding in agreement. Lumi began casting the spell, and a bright purple light began emanating from Lumi's hands, forming a magic circle, when suddenly it shattered, and a single tear flowed down Lumi's cheek. Lumi's mind was getting filled with the time she saved Ajax's life, the first time she ever used magic without a magical crystal for aid. Ajax Nox, upon noticing the tear, kneeled down in front of Lumi, and with a soft voice he spoke, "Lumi, are you all right? Is it too painful to cast?" Lumi slowly nodded, as she began crying harder. Uriel, upon noticing Lumi crying, kneeled down beside her as well, and in unison with Ajax Nox they asked, "Is there any other way for you to cast it?" She wiped the tears from her face once more before responding, "When I came to this world I brought magic crystals, they could help." Both Ajax Nox and Uriel look at each other before Uriel asks Lumi, "And where are these crystals?" "It is in the tavern Ajax and I were staying in," Lumi answered, her voice soft. With a quick motion, Uriel swept Lumi off her feet, and the three of them began walking in the direction of the tavern, the ground cracking around them as they made their way. Meanwhile, on a cliff overlooking a beautiful sunset, EGS sat, his legs dangling over the ocean below. He spoke in a truly happy tone toward the grave beside him. "Your daughter even has a hidden type, just like you did. Perhaps she will become your replacement. I never wanted to kill you 4 million years ago, but because I did, your daughter became so interesting." As EGS finished speaking, he glared at the grave and spoke in a low tone. "It would be a shame to kill someone as interesting as her, but if she forces my hand." The once populated city in El Cluid was deserted. As the group made their way toward the tavern, they passed the once thriving Monsters Hunter Association was now barren, apart from 3 beast folk that were barricading the doors. Lumi and Uriel arrived at the tavern first, with Ajax Nox being close behind. They slowly entered the tavern, broken glass cracking beneath them. All 3 of them were shocked to see the tavern keeper pinned to the wall by a sword sticking through his chest. Lumi gagged on the smell as they entered, and she quickly made her way upstairs. The floor creaked as Lumi ascended the stairs, each step flooding her with memories of her time with Ajax from the first ever meal, where they made their first paycheck. Her heartbeat increased with every step she took. As Lumi reached the top of the staircase, she peered into her room. It was the only one that was still intact. Looking at her bed, a single tear flowed down her cheek. Lumi slowly made her way toward the bed. As the memories flooded back, she sat next to the floor, reminiscing of her time with Ajax. That dream, why would I get them now? I've lived for so long, so why are they only appearing now? Is it because I met Ajax? Lumi whispered to herself before grabbing her bag from under the bed. Lumi stood up, gripping the bag tightly. She notices her sword in the corner of her eye. Turning slowly, she noticed some writing on the wall. "He has such a nice scream when I hurt him, so maybe I won't return Ajax." Lumi stared in shock at the wall. She quickly grabbed her sword before running out of the room, a tear running down her face. Right as she exited the room, there was a blinding white flash coming from outside the tavern. "Lumi, get out here now!" Uriel yelled toward Lumi. Upon hearing this, she ran toward the screaming. As Lumi ran down the stairs, she wiped the tears from her face. bursting through the door, finding Dix Nox and Uriel standing guard looking toward Ansgar, his red eyes glinting in the daylight. Ansgar stood his back straight. As he spoke in a cold tone, "Are you leaving so soon? The fun is just starting." Lumi noticed Ansgar standing there, and all of her grief was replaced with anger as she lunged toward Ansgar, swinging her sword straight at his neck. Time seemed to stretch on as Ansgar stared at Lumi's sword approaching his neck. He caught the blade in between his two fingers, and a shockwave shot past him. Ansgar grabbed Lumi by her throat, holding her close to his own face, before he whispered in her ear, "You're getting stronger. Each and every day I wonder if that is a part of your hidden type." Before Dx Nox could try and help, Ansgar had already thrown Lumi at him. Ansgar stood up straight, staring down at the trio before he spoke, with a cold smirk. "It is a shame to cut this visit so short, but it's not time for you to die, and this world is collapsing." Ansgar raised his left hand, revealing a leather fingerless glove covering it. As Ansgar removed the glove, the air itself began to freeze and all sounds ceased. Dx Nox, Uriel and Lumi stared in shock as Ansgar snapped his fingers together, breaking the deafening silence. The world froze over and a portal opened beneath them, allowing them to fall through. As the group hit the ground with a thud, they stood up, Dx Nox and Uriel looking around, while Lumi looked at Ansgar, screaming at him with tears in her eyes to return Ajax. Ansgar stared down at them, before walking away, his footsteps completely silent as the portal closed in front of them. Lumi finally stopped screaming and looked around, noticing she is in her garden. "Hey Lumi, do you know where we are?" Dx Nox asked Lumi, his voice filled with curiosity. Lumi turned around to face Dx Nox before she bowed down, and she responded, "This is the safe area I was talking about. This is my realm, otherwise known as my garden." When Lumi lifted her head, she noticed Uriel was nowhere to be found. Lumi was confused at where Uriel could have gone. She was sure he had come through the portal with Dx Nox and her. Lumi quickly glanced around, looking for any evidence of Uriel. Looking back at Dx Nox, Lumi worriedly asked him, "Do you know where Uriel went?" After a short pause, Dx Nox answered, "I'm not sure where Uriel is. If we want to find him, it's probably best to split up. However, I need to ask, is there anything dangerous in here?" Lumi looked toward Dx Nox, her cyan eyes glinting in the light. Lumi rapidly answered Dx Nox, "There is nothing dangerous inside here." "If that is the case, then there is no risk if we split up," Dx Nox admitted as he began walking away from Lumi. "Come find me if you find him first." Lumi stared on a Dx Nox as he walked away. Even though he was larger than her, his footsteps were far quieter. Dx Nox quickly disappeared into the distance. When Dx Nox was out of sight, Lumi turned around, and she walked forward into the main area of her garden. It was the exact same as before she left. The letter on her desk was moved. Lumi continued to walk around her garden. Each of her footsteps was light against the stone walkway beneath her. She walked over to her desk, not noticing the letter was moved. Lumi reached for her father's book and began flipping through the pages. Lumi continued to flip through the pages till she hit a bookmark. It was the page about Abraxas. As Lumi reread this page, a single tear dripped from her face onto the page. The book was placed back onto the desk as Lumi wiped the tear from her face. She began to walk away again when she heard a scream from the direction Dx Nox went. Lumi quickly ran towards the shouting. They didn't sound of anguish, but rather of anger, like someone was arguing. As Lumi was approaching, she saw Uriel and Dx Nox. It sounded like Uriel was arguing with Dx Nox for some reason. "It's your fault they're gone," yelled Uriel, tears forming in his eyes. "How is it my fault?" Dx Nox retorted back, confusion plaguing his expression. Uriel's face scrunched up in anger. "It was your idea to follow Lumi, and now it's your fault. It's your fault that they're gone." Dx Nox looked at Uriel in confusion before asking, "Who are you talking about?" "Rose, Yuki, and Lily." "Just because you don't have a family left, it doesn't mean I wanted to lose mine," Uriel yelled back as tears were streaming down his face. "My wife. My daughters." Dix Knox's confused face turned into one of anger before he shouted back, "There is no reason you should bring my past into this, and how would you even know that they are gone?" It was when Ansgar said, "The world is collapsing," I knew he meant the world was getting destroyed when the world froze over. That means they are. Uriel fell down to his knees, crying as he spoke. "Just because your family is dead, it doesn't mean I can't feel sad when mine die." Dix Knox, his grey eyes staring down at Uriel, a pissed look on his face. "Don't bring up my past, it doesn't mean I don't have feelings still," Dix Knox screamed as he grabbed Uriel by his throat. Right as Uriel was lifted into the air, Lumi screamed at Dix Knox, "Calm down. This isn't the place for violence." Lumi looked worried, and her voice was shaky as she spoke. "My mother always said, I should let people burn their rage away with argument, but I cannot abide you fighting each other." Dix Knox looked at Lumi before dropping Uriel, and in a soft tone he spoke to Uriel. "I'm sorry, Uriel. I shouldn't have gotten so mad when you brought up my past, nor should I have dismissed your love when you said they died." "I'll accept your apology, but only if you agree to take the blame, or at least share it with me," Uriel answered, his voice soft as he smiled at Dix Knox, tears streaming down his face. "I'll share the burden with you," Dix Knox replied, as he stood up and looked toward Lumi. "Why do you look so composed? When we met up last, your eyes were still sunken from the crying." Lumi looked surprised at the question, but answered hesitantly, "When I was inside the tavern, I saw a message carved into the wall. It had a part of it about returning Ajax, so I believe he isn't gone. I just need to retrieve him." Dix Knox stared at Lumi while nodding his head. "That explains it. So that's our secondary go." Dix Knox was cut off by Uriel as he enthusiastically spoke. "If Ajax could be alive, then my family could still be alive." All three of them looked at each other in silence for a few seconds before Dix Knox asked sheepishly, "Lumi, can you show us the main area of this place?" Lumi stared blankly at him before answering in a polite tone, "Sure, it's this way. Let's go." Meanwhile, inside a castle overlooking a cliffside, there is a figure drenched in the flickering light of a candle. They're writing a letter, embedded with gold inlays. Inside the letter is written, "Hello, old friend, I know you are probably busy with tasks from EGS, but I ask a favor of you. General, I'd be thankful if you'd accept." Back with the group, as they walk around the main area of Lumi's garden, their footsteps are in unison as Lumi shows the area, that there is my desk where I do some work, and there is the storage area. As the trio looks at the desk, a letter materializes out of thin air and gracefully falls onto the desk. Lumi walks over to her desk. A light set of footsteps follow her as she slowly picks up the letter and opens it. "Hello, Lumi. Long time no chat. I'm inviting you to join a banquet among gods. You may bring a +1. P.S. Only one extra person." Lumi looked around before asking, "Should I go?" She had a look of confusion on her face as she asked. "Of course you should," both Uriel and Dix Knox said in unison. Lumi looked confused as she spoke. "Who should come with me?" "Uriel, do you want to go?" With a face of pure joy, Uriel answered, "No, I'm too excited about the prospect of bringing my family back. I'm sure Dix Knox would go." Lumi and Uriel looked toward Dix Knox expectantly before he finally answered, "It would be nice to meet other gods like Lumi, so yes, I'll go with." The three of them stare at each other with hope in their eyes as they contemplate what Lumi and Dix Knox should wear. The trio stared at each other in complete silence before Dix Knox spoke up, "Lumi, how are we going to get to the banquet?" Just as he finished speaking, a letter appeared before them, slowly gliding down, landing in their center. "Guess that answers your question," Lumi replied, while looking down at the letter, bent down, slowly picked it up, and read the contents out loud. "Hello, ladies or gentlemen. If you are receiving this letter, it means you have been invited to my banquet. To enter my realm, infuse the magic circle present with some mana, which will open the portal. Please note, this portal does know how many people enter, so trying to sneak the uninvited won't work." After Lumi read the contents, Uriel spoke calmly while his voice subtly cracked. "Lumi, your outfit looks like it's meant for a banquet, although, Dix, your outfit makes you look common." "Hey, Uriel, you are supposed to support your friend, and it is not like there would be any clothes that fit me here anyways." Dix Knox playfully replied. "You're right. I don't think anything here would fit you," Lumi answered. Uriel put his hand on his chin, as he thought, perhaps I could make something. I'm not too skilled at making clothes, but I'm sure I can figure it out, or you could just go looking like that. But if it is a banquet of actual gods, you might want something a little more showy. Lumi, can you make clothes? I do trust Uriel, but not in clothes, Dix Nox shyly asked. Huh. I never made clothes before. Strangely, my dad never taught me, Lumi admitted. Why would your dad teach you? Isn't it more normal for a feminine figure to know how, Dix Nox asked curiously. He was really into making things. He held many titles around that, Lumi replied. However, that isn't the point. We need to get you into clothes. That makes sense for a banquet. Hey Lumi, do you have any materials I can use? Uriel calmly asked. Yeah, right. Sorry, Dix Nox replied to Lumi, blushing slightly. Yeah, it should be over in that area of there, Lumi answered Uriel. Uriel began calmly walking toward the storage area, Lumi pointed out, while Dix Nox and Lumi were left alone, standing in the main area. Lumi quickly walked over to her desk, picking up the old letters she'd forgotten about. Before Dix Nox asked her, Lumi, before the incident on the world you said, I'd lose if I fought a full god, yet you also claim to be a full god. But I know I'd win if we fought. What gives? I was cursed. Or at least that is my theory. I was always weak. And I still am. I was born with the title, the weakest god. Only a few months ago, did someone, I'm not sure who, lift it. They also gave me a sword they claimed could harm EGS. But I'm not sure I believe it, Lumi answered sadly. Lumi, what happened? You sound so sad, and why would you need a sword to harm EGS? If their appearance was more recent, Dix Nox calmly asked. My parents were killed by EGS. I'm not sure why he did it. According to my dad, he was respected by EGS, and I don't know what my mum thought about him, Lumi answered, a single tear rolling down her cheek. Before Dix Nox had a chance to reply, Uriel came running back. He was holding something, but it wasn't clear what it was. When he reached Dix Nox, he showed him a 3-piece suit that was pure black. Dix Nox gave one look at the suit before speaking. I'm not wearing that. Why not? Uriel asked curiously. I'll look ridiculous, Dix Nox answered. No, you won't, Uriel and Lumi said in unison. Fine, I'll wear it, Dix Nox conceded, sounding defeated. But how did you finish it so quickly? You were gone for like 5 minutes. I found an interesting book, and it described exactly how to make a suit, Uriel explained, a look of excitement on his face. And you not only read the book, but also followed it exactly, in 5 minutes, Lumi asked, sounding shocked. Hey, surprised. I'm not as dumb as I look, Uriel jokingly said. Huh? I never said you were dumb, sorry if it seemed that way, Lumi shyly spoke, with an apologetic look on her face. It's fine, it was just a joke after all. You should learn how to take jokes better. It makes you seem nicer, Uriel comforted Lumi. It's probably about time you two leave then. I'll make sure this place gets cleaned up while you two are gone. Lumi opened the letter, looking for the magic circle that was mentioned. She looked up toward Dix Nox and asked shyly, could you activate the spell? I still don't have proper control over my mana, after Ajax. Sure. I don't mind, Dix Nox answered Lumi, a slight smile appearing on his face. Dix Nox reluctantly grabbed the suit that Uriel made him before he walked off to put it on. Lumi looked at Uriel, realizing she was alone with him, deciding to ask him not that long ago, you and Dix Nox were fighting, yet now you are acting like that didn't happen, why? Is it bothering you? I know I'm not perfect. I let my emotions outweigh my friendship. Uriel calmly spoke. The thing is, about Dix Nox. I'm his only friend, the first one he had in quite a long time. He has been through a lot. And I'm not going to put him through that again because we had a little argument. It's not that it's bothering me, I just didn't understand how you acted so close when the mark he left on your neck is still there, Lumi calmly spoke. Guess it doesn't make sense when you put it like that. But does it need to make sense? It was my fault he got so angry, so I'm not going to be the one to end this friendship. I'll leave that decision to him, Uriel explained, a small smile on his face. Looks like DAX Nox is ready. And... I look ridiculous, don't I? DAX Nox shamefully asked. No, you look good, Uriel claimed while holding back laughter. Sure. I do, DAX Nox replied. Lumi, can you hand me the letter? Sure, Lumi says, reaching for the letter. I'm sure the letter gets destroyed after use, so we need to be quick. The trio stared at each other before Uriel went in to hug DAX Nox, while jokingly saying, Hey, don't die in there. All right, Lumi, let's go. We'll see this jokester when we get back, DAX Nox said. DAX Nox slowly opened the letter, looking for the blue magic circle on the back, and he put his hand against it, flowing his mana through it like it was second nature. Instantly, a portal appeared in front of the trio as the letter burnt away. The portal was opaque, had a purple outline, and emitted no sound. Lumi and DAX Nox slowly stepped toward it. As they approached, Lumi looked, and with a serious look, she told DAX Nox, I know you were the god beheader, but would you kindly not try and kill every god in there? I want to return here alive. Surprised at the sudden change in mood, DAX Nox answered back, Sure, if you really think it helps. Both DAX Nox and Lumi walked through the portal, their footsteps in unison as they crossed over, into a majestic place, the walls plated with gold and the floors made of pure marble. They stood, appearing in front of a sign, leading them to the guests. Through the empty hallway of marble, the sign quickly disappeared, while Lumi and DAX Nox slowly walked through after exiting the purple portal. They looked quite surprised at the sight. They'd never expect such beauty. Lumi walked closer to the wall, smoothly gliding her hand over it. While Lumi was enamored with the wall, DAX Nox's eyes shot up, and his complexion grew paler. Lumi, what is that? DAX Nox stammered, sweat dripping onto his suit. Lumi curiously looked over, her cyan eyes catching what he was looking at. Nothing. DAX Nox, what are you staring at? Lumi asked, confusion plaguing her face. There's nothing there. Lumi took her hand off the golden beam, her petite footsteps etching closer to DAX Nox. Before she could reach DAX Nox, he responded, fear plaguing his voice. Can't you feel that intense aura? Hey, DX, can you bend down for me? Lumi calmly asked, her voice as sweet as honey. Sure, DAX Nox replied, elegantly bowing down in front of Lumi. A soft hand was placed upon his head with a gentle voice following. It's going to be okay, you don't need to be scared. It's not real. It's just mana designed to feel and look like an aura. Lumi spoke. Slowly DAX Nox looked up, his mum appearing in view, causing a single tear to flow down his cheek, blinking several times. Before the vision faded, he met Lumi's gaze. Mum, muttered DAX Nox while he looked into Lumi's eyes. He stood up and embraced Lumi in a hug. Thank you. You're welcome, Lumi gently replied while tightly hugging him back. It's been a while since I've gotten a hug. Hug. Yeah, I meant to do that, DAX Nox muttered to himself, his face red from embarrassment. Don't tell Uriel, please. I'll never hear the end of it. Sure, I won't tell him, Lumi answered with a slight giggle. DAX Nox looked to the end of the breathtaking hallway. His once accelerated breaths now slowed. He turned to Lumi once more before speaking calmly. Thank you. Let's continue. It would be embarrassing to miss my first ever banquet because I got scared. Yeah, let's continue, Lumi quickly replied. They continued to walk down the majestic hallway. The floors themselves seemed to repel sound, and the walls were polished to perfection and more expensive as the two continued deeper, from gold beams to platinum, to materials that housed universes. They took the final step at the end of the opulence halls, into the banquet itself. Instantly the air filled with a savory aroma and the chatter of gods. DAX Nox and Lumi were in wonder and the diverse appearances of gods. While some looked like monstrous masses of tentacles, others looked more like demons with their red skin and horns. Why are you surprised? I thought you've seen gods before, considering you are one. DAX Nox whispered to Lumi. I haven't seen gods like this before. Normally they look more human, Lumi whispered back, Haven't you encountered gods like this during your demigod hunting days? Neither have I, DIX Nox whispered back, while a man stood leaning against a wall, his purple eyes staring toward Lumi. The gods that once were entrenched in their food and conversations became silent, while they stared toward DX Nox, before one of them walked up to him, staring in amazement. I didn't know they allowed humans in here. Nice to meet you, I'm Mylon. She excitedly exclaimed. I'm lower-ranked 10 of the gods. Hey Milon, are all the gods here lower-ranked? Lumi curiously asked, while staring into Milon's red eyes. Wait, who are you? Cyan hair and eyes, Victorian clothes, weak aura. Milon muttered to herself, Oh, you're Lumi. I didn't expect the weakest god to show up. MS lower-ranked one, yes, there are only weaker gods here. You can't insult me like that. It's not like you are anything special, Lumi said, slight annoyance in her voice. Do you know where the host is? Hey, Orion, come look. The Lumi is trying to say we're on the same level as her. Mylon shouted toward the rest of the gods. Gods were now focused on Lumi from the shouting, while others crowded around DX Nox to learn more about him. Soon after, a god with pure white hair and golden eyes surrounding his near-black face came up to Lumi. The god with purple eyes kept staring at Lumi, his interest now piqued. So, Lumi, you think that just because we're lower-ranked gods like you means we are on the same level? Because we are not? You are just some worthless cretin that shouldn't be a god, declared Orion, his golden eyes staring down at Lumi. Yeah, how can a god be weaker than a human? You don't deserve to live. If I were your parents, I would have ended you on the spot. Nobody so weak should be a god, Milon mockingly exclaimed, slapping Lumi in the face. Quickly falling to the floor, Lumi begins to cry, while Milon and Orion laugh at her. The sounds of heavy footsteps approached Lumi, and with a towering voice, this figure spoke, Fuck off, Milon and Orion. Leave right now before I paint this room with your insides. Toldar spoke, his purple eyes glaring down at Lumi, before grabbing her by the neck. Who are you? Lumi spoke, barely getting words out. Hey Lumi, I've been hired to collect that sword from you. Now tell me where it is, or I'll butcher that friend of yours, Toldar arrogantly stated. Hearing the commotion, DIX Nox quickly pushed out of the horde of gods surrounding him. His footsteps were light as he ran toward Toldar, calling his pure black falchion into existence. He stabbed Toldar. However, Toldar remained unaffected, the edge of the blade pushing against his skin, as if it were steel. What? Who are you? DIX Nox asked, sweat pouring from his face, his grey eyes wide open. Toldar's purple eyes stared right into DX Nox's soul, and in a cold, callous tone, he declared, Me? I am Toldar, god of arrogance, and the one who will remove your soul from that measly vessel. DX Nox stared intently at Toldar, looking for any weaknesses, but before he could do anything, Toldar reached out toward him. DX Nox stared at this humanoid god, quickly reaching his arm out. Suddenly, Toldar's arm gets cut off in a sickening squirting sound, and a figure wearing pure gold armor stands between them, Toldar still holding Lumi's neck. What does the measly security want with me? I'm the great Toldar. You can't stop me, Toldar declared, his arm instantly growing back. What? That can't be possible. Nothing should be that powerful. This measly security has more power than I can comprehend. That shouldn't be possible, DIX Nox worriedly thought to himself, while the armored individual stared down Toldar. Toldar, I was invited by the host of this event, and I will fulfill the favor I promised them. Now stand down. I don't want to use force, General politely asked, bowing down slightly, but I won't hesitate to use it if you force me. Toldar's black hair blew around from the manner exuding from General, as he let go of Lumi, her weak body looking up toward General. Quickly Toldar lunged at General, fast enough that everyone appeared to be frozen in time. He balled up his fist, and he hurled it toward General's head. The punch inched closer, and closer, to his head. Swiftly and elegantly General weaved to the right, dodging the punch, sending his own toward Toldar's chest, and his face. General turned around, and kneeled in front of Lumi, comforting her, as Toldar shot backwards, slamming into the expensive wall, as the gods looked between them. Hello, Lumi. I hope you're okay. I'm very sorry I didn't help sooner. I was having a conversation with my master, and he didn't allow me to assist. General softly muttered. I do hope you can forgive me. The walls around Toldar began regenerating themselves, while Toldar remained unconscious on the floor. Diex Nox looked panicked at General, and Lumi's body was weak and injured.